Hello and welcome to the Mighty Oaks Show. My name is Jeremy Stolnicker. I'm the Executive Director of the Mighty Oaks Foundation, here with our remote guest, Chad Robichaux, the founder of the Mighty Oaks Foundation. And Chad is hiding out in his secret bunker somewhere in Arizona. I won't tell you right now, but message me. I'll let you know where he is if you need me to. But hiding out. And we have Yeah, you're safe. That's what you think in Arizona. Here with a special guest today, and super stoked about our guest, Remi Adeleke.
Yes, sir. Adeleke, you got
Adeleke,
it. Yes,
pretty
sir.
close. And super glad that you can be here, man. Thanks for taking time to be with us.
Yes,
and
sir.
it's awesome. I've heard so much about you, and it seems like everywhere I go, someone says, "Hey, do you know Remi?" No, I don't know Remi, man. So I had to have you on our show so I could get to know you. That was the only reason you're here.
I know.
So I could meet you.
I appreciate everybody else's push.
Yeah, awesome. And you and Chad go way back, and you've had a friendship for a long time, but it's awesome to have you here, man. And you've done so many things in your life, and your resume is incredible. You have been a Navy SEAL,
yes, sir.
Which is, I mean, whatever. I don't know if anyone cares about that or not. But you weren't a Marine, but you weren't a Marine. But
I was a corpsman with the Marines at one point.
All right, whatever. That's pretty good. I've heard your story.
Yeah.
But so Navy SEAL, and you have done commercials. You're in a movie. I was telling you before, when my kids found out you're going to be on the show, the only thing they cared about was the Transformers. Like, he was on Transformers. Well, yeah, but he's done a lot of other stuff too. Like, no, he was on the Transformers.
Yeah.
So you've done that. You're writing a book, written a book to be released pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of crazy stuff. And I think from the outside, someone could look at your life and say, that's it. That's the picture of success.
Yeah.
This guy has made all the right decisions since the beginning of his life until now. This guy's done everything right, and that's what I aspire to be. One of the things that we have the opportunity to do on our show, and truly, you know, why we asked you to be here and why our relationship to you is so important is because we understand that people, all people, struggle.
Yeah.
And yet we look at the outside of someone and we conclude that I could never be like that.
Exactly.
I could never experience success like that because my life is different, right? We all think we're different.
Yeah.
And your story is an amazing story, but it's not amazing because you've taken all the right steps to get to where you are. It's amazing because you haven't.
Yeah.
All the time, right?
I did all the wrong steps.
Right.
I took all the wrong steps.
So take us back to the beginning and tell us your story. How did we get here?
Yeah, so my dad kind of starts with my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was a well-known Nigerian engineer, as well as an entrepreneur, philanthropist, art collector. He was very successful at what he did. And because of his success, I was born into wealth.
Right.
So I kind of started out with this silver spoon in my mouth, so to speak. We traveled all over the world. We lived in Nigeria on a compound. We had security. We had drivers. We had nannies. Yeah. I mean, we just lived this life.
That's not what I think of when I think of Nigeria.
No. And that's the thing. You know, Nigeria is a very wealthy and has been a very wealthy country because of oil.
Oil, right.
It's just the issue in Nigeria is how the money is dispersed.
Sure. Yep.
You know, and so because of my dad's success, you know, we lived a great life. But unfortunately, due to corruption, going back to how the money is dispersed, the Nigerian government decided one day that we're going to strip from your father one of his most valuable assets. Yeah. And that asset is known as Banana Island.
Yeah.
It still exists.
That's a crazy story. I heard you tell that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, go into that a little bit, how it developed.
Yeah. So my dad in the 1970s, my dad had this vision. He was a visionary, and he had this vision to develop this city in Nigeria that would be a beacon for all of Africa.
Yep.
And he bought this land called Maroko. It's Maroko. And the Nigerian government in 1970, and it was a wasteland. This was a swine. It was a wasteland. And the Nigerian government decided in 1970, you can't have that. And my dad had just spent 8 million pounds to buy it. So
and they just decided you can't
have it anymore.
Yeah.
And so my dad went to court for 10 years and fought the Nigerian. He was relentless. I mean, a lot of people ask where I get my perseverance from, and a big part of it is from my dad.
Right.
And he went to court, fought them for 10 years, and finally they got fed up with him. And they said, "All right, what do you want?"
Yeah.
And my dad said, "I'll take the water." They're like, "What water?" "I'll take the foreshore, the water off of Lagos."
Yeah.
And the reason why he chose that was because he figured, if I develop land on something where there never was any land, no one could ever say it was ours first. You can't take it from me.
Yeah.
So he got the water. He hired Dutch engineers. They dredged the foreshore, and my dad created an island. And once the island was created, and my dad had invested millions of more dollars into it. He had signed contracts with all kind of big businesses for them to come on and develop and have
It's like
stores.
a retreat or a resort, something like that.
Not necessarily. That's what it's turned into now.
Right.
You know, billionaires live on an island now, and this is beautiful, luxurious kind of resort. But no, it was meant to be a business center.
Okay.
You know, and the Adeleke Towers, he had this design, and I put it in my book, but he had this design for the Adeleke Towers that was supposed to be the centerpiece for the entire island. Yeah. So anyway, they after my dad invested all these millions of dollars in there, the Nigerian government, the Lagos state government, said, you know what, the federal government was never supposed to give you this land.
Sure.
Because this is Lagos.
They waited till it was developed.
They waited until it was developed.
And then they decided they wanted it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have done that before he even dredged.
Right.
But once it was developed, the Lagos state government said, that's ours. It belongs to us, and you can't have it. And the federal government said, yeah, you know what, they're right, it does belong to them. So my dad, you know, we lost everything, and he died days later. So, you know, he went to court and fought, and then he died, mysteriously died. And we went from having everything rich to not having a nickel to our name.
He died mysteriously.
Yeah, you know, it was, you know, my mom always calls it a setup. You know, the way I look at it, I call it a setup as well. He just walked out of the house, and a dog with rabies ran up to him and bit him.
No kidding.
And my dad, he couldn't leave Nigeria. A lot of wealthy Nigerians, when they get sick, even if they get a common cold, they do not go to the hospital in Nigeria because the hospital system is a mess. Yeah. So they'll fly to London for a medical treatment, or they'll fly to the US. I mean, people go sometimes as a common cold, because you have some people in Nigeria, they break their leg, go to the hospital, they die in the hospital. And so my dad, you know, instead of going back to the States or to London to go deal with this dog bite, he just went to a local hospital.
He was dealing with all the other property stuff and the legal stuff.
Exactly. So that's why he couldn't leave.
Yeah.
And so he was prescribed bad medication.
Yeah.
And essentially he died in an autopsy. The autopsy showed that the medication that he got was not the right medication. It was bad. Then, you know, he died of rabies as well. And then he died of a heart attack, a combination of those three things.
How old were you then?
I was 5.
You had brothers, sisters?
I had one full-blooded brother that I knew of at the time, that I grew up with, obviously. Yeah. I have other half-siblings, 2 that I knew of, but others that I found out about later in life. But yeah, it was just me, my mom, and my brother. And my mom, she was American. She met my dad in the United States, and then they got married, and then she moved to Nigeria. So my mom was just like, there's no way I'm raising my kids here. Right. So that's when we left to the United States. Yeah. And that's where more of my failures begin to pop up.
Yeah, so you went from a silver spoon in your mouth, you've got everything, and literally in a day.
To the bottom.
Everything changes.
Everything changed. Your
mom brought you back to the United States. You guys ended up in New York?
New York City, the Bronx.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was that like? I mean, obviously, you know, she came from there, so she's coming back. Yeah. Was there a place that you came back to? Was there a family that took you in?
No, I mean, I had our grandmother. So I had my grandmother at the time. She grew up. She lived in Manhattan and Washington Heights. We had like aunts. But for the most part, it was me, my mom, and my brother. I'll tell a story that I didn't share in the book. When my mom, after my dad died, my mom called up one of her family members who she had grown up with, who she was really close to, and he was wealthy. He had, you know, a significant amount of money, and she said, "Hey, listen, I have no money to feed the kids or clothe the kids. The account, there's nothing in the account. Can you loan me some money to help me, you know, get by, and I'll pay you back when I can figure out a job." And this family member said, "Let me call you back in 5 minutes." 5 minutes later, the wife calls my mom back and says to my mom, "How dare you call up my husband and ask him for money? If you ever want anything, you got to go through me first." And then she hung up on my mom. And so that was my mom's bottom. But I say all that to say, that showed my mom that we have nobody else to turn to. Right. I have no one else to turn to take care of these 2 boys. I need to figure this thing out on my own. Yeah. And you know, people ask me all the time, I talked about my dad and how I get a lot of my perseverance from him, but I get a lot of my perseverance and resilience from my mom, because where she could have easily given up after having her husband die and 2 little boys and no way to feed the kids, you know, she could have jumped off a bridge. She could have went and found a guy to marry to
could have done anything.
But you know, she put the pedal to the metal and got after.
So, we deal with, in our programs, we deal with so many different traumatic events and traumatic issues. And Chad could talk about this too, but most of the people that we deal with would say, well, I was in combat and there's this event in combat and that's what I'm struggling with and that's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
But so often we rewind that back to, it really isn't the combat thing.
Yeah.
It's a childhood
it's the testimony,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
When we get to the point in our program, for me, where we at, these guys, talking about the Mighty Oaks Legacy program, we get to the point where the guys want to share their stories, right? They want to talk about what they've been through in life. And they came there because of things that happened in combat. But when they start, oftentimes it's when I was 5, when I was 7, when I was 9, my dad, like these like underlying like life issues from childhood seem to be the baseline where, trauma began in people's lives and really
absolutely.
altered the course of their life.
It sets the course for life, right? So what are your memories from then? Like you think back, all this is going on, your dad dies, your mom's trying to figure this stuff out, she moves you to the United States, which I assume was new to you.
Kinda, because we traveled all over, and we traveled to the States here and there. As far as the transition, my mom, she did a fantastic job of masking the reality of what was going on.
Right. It wasn't you didn't know it was as bad as it was.
I didn't know it was bad as it was.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember the day my mom told me, I'll never forget it, the day my mom told me my father died. She placed my brother on her right side, placed me on her left side. It was a red couch. I remember the wall, everything.
Yeah.
And she said, your father died and he's not coming back. And the way she said it was so comforting, and that we didn't see anything wrong with what she, I mean, you got to keep in mind, we're young, so we don't fully understand death.
Of course.
But the way she said it was just, she was trying to mask the reality of what was going on. And right after she told us, me and my brother looked at each other and said, okay, and we went into the bedroom and we just went back to playing as if nothing happened. And so the transition was fairly easy, partly because my mom masked the reality. There were times, and I've mentioned this before, there were times when my mom didn't have enough food to feed herself. She had just enough food to feed my brother and I. And I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until years later when me and my brother got into an argument. And because if we got to argue about something, I won't go down. But he said, don't you know, Ma, she wouldn't even, she wouldn't even eat. She would split her food between us. And then when he said that, I went back to that time period and I was just like, I remember.
It clicked, right?
It clicked.
Yeah.
That's why she wouldn't sit at the table with us, but instead she would sit behind us and watch us. She would stand behind us and watch us eat the food. And she would get so upset when I spit. I hated onions. I hated onions.
Who doesn't though?
Oh my! But as a kid, especially with my mom, because she would dice them and they were these perfect slimy squares, and I hated them. And I remember spitting out the onions one time, and she just got so furious, and she was furious because that was food that she could eat. And I just say that to say, again, she did a fantastic job of masking the reality of our situation. Now, as I got older, 7, 8, 9, and I began to see our lack, see our situation, then I began to really break down and say, man, what's going on? Why are we in this situation? And I equated it to, it's all because my dad's dead. If my dad was alive, our life would be totally different. And so now I need to figure out a way or plan to make our lives better than what it is.
I personally,
my responsibility.
I maybe missed it. Were you the older brother, or?
I was the younger of the two, but I was always bigger than my brother. We grew up fighting people and fighting each other, and I was always like, people always think I was an older brother because of that. I don't know. I feel like I always had that leadership mantle, that take charge, make the decision first. So that's kind of why I feel like I made that decision.
Did you put that pressure on yourself, or did your mom or someone else put that pressure on you?
I put that pressure on myself. Yeah, it definitely wasn't my mom at all. My mom just wanted. The only pressure she really put on my brother and I was education. My mom was a teacher in the South Bronx. The education system in the Bronx in general was horrible at the time. It's still bad now. That's why there's so many charter schools popping up. And my mom didn't want my brother and I to be a statistic. And so she would make us write reports, on the weekend to get on par.
She wanted you to have a better future and work toward that. So you took that responsibility on yourself, and as I recall your story, you did provide.
I did provide.
Maybe you didn't have a clear path to the right way to provide, right?
Yeah. The Lord shall provide. I provided in a lot of bad ways. I started out little things, as a kid, just stealing from my mom, you know. I remember, our house got robbed by a crackhead twice, 2 to 3 times. And after that happened, because my mom would keep the money under the mattress, I would go take like a little $10, $5, $20. Yeah. So it started out like, we were talking about the gateway drug. Yeah. Like smoke a little weed.
It'll be fun.
Like that.
Right.
And then, I would go into the local corner stores, bodegas, and I would steal chips, candy here and there, and run out the store. And then that progressed to getting jobs. And when I would get like legitimate jobs, working at sneaker stores or, working at I remember because there wasn't email, wasn't a thing. So there was these courier services. Right. And I would just figure out a way to scam that. And then, finally I worked my way up to selling drugs. And I worked my way up to running high level scams where my competitors, people who were doing what I was doing, was going to federal prison. Wow. And so but I provided. Yeah. Right. And so to me, in my mindset, I was doing the right thing.
You're justifying it, right?
I was justifying it. Yeah, absolutely.
Does that give you compassion? This is probably aside from our conversation here, but does that give you a different kind of compassion for young people who are caught in that same situation?
Absolutely.
Like I would look at it from the outside and go, they're thugs, they're criminals, they need to be thrown in jail. Yeah. But I've never been in that situation where this is how you provide for your family.
No, absolutely. It does. It gives me so much empathy because I know how those environments, Bronx, Brooklyn, Compton, Watts, I know how they're structured and set up. Yeah. And to a certain extent, they're set up for the people within that environment to fail. Right. And a lot of it has to do with the education system. Right. It's not an environment that's conducive to success. It can be, but you got to really push hard against the grain, against your entire situation and get to that point of success. You got to work 10 times harder. Yeah. And so I have so much empathy. As a matter of fact, I work with a nonprofit here in San Diego called the Mesa City Hope. And my specific specialty is inner city at-risk youth and kids in group homes, juveniles who've been where I've been. Yeah. And I love doing it because I get them. Yeah.
But as a kid, you talk about you have to push hard and you have to be, a kid doesn't know that. And so it takes people on the outside like you. And I'm hearing you talk and, you're a statistic of a fatherless home in a in a rough inner city area. And in so many, I don't know the stats offhand, but I know it's a lot of inner city families or fatherless homes. And so they don't have that guidance. So it takes outside influences, people to come in and mentor and give direction.
Absolutely. Yeah, because if the right mentor doesn't come in, a mentor will come in. And that was my situation. My situation was my mentor was street culture, hip hop culture, rap culture, listening to Big EJ, not knocking them at all, but just listening to Big EJ, 50, all of these rappers. And listen to the blueprint that they were putting together and saying, okay, this is my blueprint for success. Yeah. This is what it means to be a man, and so the mentors did come and I listened, so at the end of the day, what it boils down to is what mentors are entering those environments. Yeah. And that, we talk about, Nipsey Hussle's come up a lot later because of his untimely death, which is so sad. And, to me, he was a mentor. And I think it was really important for him I really loved what he did by going back to where he came from and saying, you know what, I don't have to be here. I could be somewhere else in some rich environment, but I'm coming back to this place to be that mentor, to be that, to help out where I can, to push people forward. And I think we need more of that in the inner city, in those environments, people who have got out to come back and say, I'm going to use my experiences to get back. Yeah.
We talk about legacy a lot. This is a kind of a thread, and I think you would agree with us on that. We're all building a life. We're all writing a story. We're going to leave something behind. The question is, what are we going to leave behind? I think one of the difficult things to communicate to people is you are going to leave something behind. Yeah. You are mentoring someone. Yeah. Someone is following your example.
Exactly.
And the question is not, is someone looking to you for direction? Is someone following you? Because a lot of those hip hop artists and others would say, I'm not mentoring anyone.
Yeah.
This is art.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're mentoring a generation of people who are trying to follow their example. And so understanding that all of us are leaving someone.
I say legacy sounds like a good word, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably more times than not, it's not a good word. I mean, we use it for our program, but the legacy that people leave behind is probably more times bad.
It's a benign word.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're doing good or bad, right?
Right.
It just reflects that you are leaving something behind.
Exactly.
And so the question is, what are you leaving behind?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So how do you get from stealing from your mom, selling drugs, running scams, just trying to get by, to let's say the recruiter's office?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. One, I got involved in a deal that went really, really bad. That was my wake-up call.
Okay.
I sold some products to a drug dealer that was supposed to last for a certain amount of time. It only lasted for a fraction of that time, and he came knocking on my mom's apartment door, and essentially, long story short, threatened me, my life.
Yeah.
And I made him his money back, and after that, I decided I got to get out of this life, because if I don't get out of this life, I'm going to end up dead or in prison.
Right.
And so for 6 months, I stayed home and I didn't do much of anything. I just meandered around, and my mom knocked on my door and said, "Get out of my house and go find a job. I'm not taking care of no grown man."
Right.
And then finally, one morning, I was lying in my bed. This was June of 2002. I'll never forget it. And I heard this voice speak to me. I heard this voice speak to me as clear as we're having a conversation. And I wasn't high. I smoked weed, but I was not high.
Right.
I didn't smoke weed that morning, but so I wasn't
Good
high.
distinction.
Yeah, right. And it was a male voice, so it wasn't my mom. And I remember propping up, and that voice said to me, "You need to get out of here. You need to join the military." I know this sounds crazy, but that's exactly what happened. And I began to go to battle with this voice in myself, like, join the military. What?
Were you a person of faith at the time?
No. I hated the church. My mom would take us to a Baptist church, Convent Avenue Baptist Church, when I was a kid. And to me, at that age, there was a lot of hooping and hollering. There was a lot of shouting. And I couldn't understand what was being said. That was one issue for me at that age.
Right.
And then the second big issue for me was I saw a lot of hypocrisy in the church. Sure. I saw people who would stand up and praise God and shout and scream, but as soon as somebody sat in their seat the next Sunday that was ordained to be theirs, it turned into an argument and a fight.
Right.
And I saw a lot of backbiting and just crazy stuff. So to me, I hated the church. Yeah. I hated Christianity, I hated religion, faith. I didn't like it all. I was completely turned off at it.
So you were certainly not looking for,
no,
God, show me what I need to do next.
No, not at all. It was, and so at that time, I thought it was my subconscious or something, this deep conviction within me speaking to me. But anyway, eventually, I capitulated, because I looked around and I said, what else am I going to do? I have nothing left. Might as well give it a shot. Sure. And I ran down the street. I grew up on Fordham Road. I went to the Marine Corps recruiter's office first.
That was a good move.
Yeah. He didn't show up. The door was open and I go in there and sit down, but he never showed up. So I ran into the Navy office, and that's kind of how I got into the Navy. But it was a challenge because I had warrants out for my arrest, which I didn't know. But the recruiter, God bless her, she took a huge chance on me by taking me to both judges, a judge in New York, judge in New Jersey, having them expunge my record, and then she fudged my paperwork in the MEPS for me to be able to get in. And I got in, man, and that was life-changing.
So I'm certainly not endorsing faking records to get in the military, right? But when I heard you tell this story before, you talked about her, her family.
Now I do.
Right?
Now I do, yeah.
And she's passed away since then.
Yeah, she died 4 years after.
But man, you talk about legacy, right?
Yeah, man.
What's her impact on your life?
I mean, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have the life that I have if she didn't do what she did.
And your kids.
And my kids.
And everyone else that you've influenced up to this point.
Just think about that. She's influenced
so many people.
Millions of people. And she did a lot of amazing things. But another thing that she influenced me to do as far as my legacy is to go give back.
Yeah.
Because that's what she did. I found out from her family that that people who were in trouble, she would fudge and sneak them into the military. She was like a Robin Hood in the hood. And the reason why she did that was because she was from the Bronx. She grew up in a co-op city.
She's from your neighborhood.
She's from the neighborhood. Yeah. She had just, she was stationed somewhere for 7-8 years, however long she was. And then she finally said, I want to take a duty station where I could be a recruiter. She took a duty station in the Bronx where she grew up. And her mantle, her job was to give back, was to help those people out who would have no chance of getting into the military. She did it for her brother. Another amazing thing she did right before she passed was she signed to donate her body as a cadaver to the Johns Hopkins Institute so that they could help find a cure for this very rare autoimmune disease that took her life. Wow. And through her donation, I mean, her brother, and I kind of write this in a closing notes in my book, but through the donation, that one act has helped so many people with the disease that she had. So she has an amazing legacy. Yeah. She has a daughter who's amazing, highly intelligent. So yeah, I'm so grateful for her. Yeah. And we need more. Her name is Tiana Reyes. And one thing I told her brother when I finally got a hold of him, I said, my job from here on out is to make sure the world knows her name.
That's incredible.
And her story.
Man, thank you for military recruiters, because I mean, that's same with me, Remi. I'm Staff Sergeant Brown. I mean, he's a Marine Corps recruiter. I didn't have a high school diploma. I definitely had no business being able to join the Marine Corps at the time, but he went out of the limb for me. And I think of that all the time. The
recruiter told me to go away. So not all of our stories are the same. And I just kept showing up, and finally he said, fine, what do we need to do? So whatever. Yeah, whatever. Oh, man. But that's an ideal legacy. Again, influence the people you can, where you are, and just let the rest of it work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
Incredible. So you go into the Navy. Yeah. And
what'd you sign up for? What job?
I was a corpsman, man. I was a corpsman. Yeah, I mean, I took the ASVAB and I scored high enough to become a corpsman, and I didn't know what that was. And she said, well, you're going to be a doc, with Marines in the infantry. I was like, cool, I get to, get a gun and run around and stuff like that. And
instead they gave you a med bag.
Instead they stationed me in Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton, where I was, checking in babies and doing rectal temps and helping with.
My son was born there. Maybe you checked in there.
I don't know. There, man, giving depot shots, So it was definitely, but it was the humbling that I needed, to go to that hospital. And yeah, man, that's really where my Navy journey kind of started.
Yeah. How'd you end up in the SEAL community?
I just wanted to be a frogman, dude. I want, when I was a kid growing up, I wanted to be a rapper, right? When I wanted to be a rapper, I didn't want to just be a rapper. I wanted to be the best rapper that I could ever be, right? Yep. And then, a lot of the main reason why one of the main reasons why I was doing a lot of the illegal things I was doing wasn't just to, put food on the table, but it was also to invest in a record company. And I did. I had a record company when I was 19. I had started my first record company. And I wanted that to be the best thing that I could have ever created. And so when I joined the Navy and I kind of further found out how special the SEALs are and how they are the best of the best, in my mind, I was like, I need to be that.
And you're the right demographic for the SEAL community too. Yeah, absolutely. The black guy from the Bronx. That's like all of them.
Who couldn't swim.
That's like every SEAL. Can't swim, black guy from the Bronx. That's what they're looking for.
Don't have the ASVAB scores, skinny. So that's where it was crazy. I made the decision that though I am unqualified in absolutely every way to be a SEAL, I'm going to figure out a way to be a SEAL. Yeah. And, I just started putting in the work, and that's what it takes sometimes, when you have those deficiencies, you could do one of two things. Either you could throw your hands up and say, this is not for me. I'm not meant to do this. I wasn't created to do this. Or you could say, you know what, I'm just going to not just work harder, I'm going to work 10 times harder to get to where I need to get so I can achieve these goals. And so that's what I did, man. I didn't have a car, so I would run 3 miles from Camp Pendleton Hospital up that hill, past Lake O'Neill, up the hill to that pool over there. And I would jump in the shallow end and try to figure it out. And then I would run 3 miles back to the barracks, man. So I just started putting in the work. And after a year and then I would put on weight. I was working out on my own, creating my own workouts, and then studying the ASVAB book. I really had to study that book to get the scores, because without the scores, you could do 1,000 pull-ups and 100,000 push-ups and sit-ups. That doesn't matter if you don't have the academic scores. You're not getting in. So I checked into that command in January 2003. And I checked out in January 2004 and went to SEAL training. So I had met every qualification within the year, which was unheard of, because you needed 18 months at your first command before you could even put in the paperwork. And I was out of there within a year. So
it's awesome. So you went to BUD/S, which arguably is one of the most difficult schools in the military.
That sucks.
That's an understatement, right? Right. So you go through the first few weeks, you hit what's known as Hell Week, and you got through all of that.
Yeah.
And then, so this is cool for me, right? Because every story has a beginning, it has some highs, it has some lows. And then it has that, like, we're getting up to the end, and we can see the end from here. And this could be that part of your story, but it's not really that part of your story.
No, right? Me and Chad would talk about this earlier on the call, the importance of, like, getting to the end when the audience is like, yes, and then you crash.
He's doing it. Oh!
Man, after I made it through Hell Week, man, I got so prideful. I was just, like, my head was, like, this big, because of all the things I made it through, and from Africa to the Bronx, and then I was like one of 3 African Americans in my first BUD/S class.
That's incredible.
Out of the class that started with like 250.
That's incredible.
After Hell Week was done, there was only 50 left, and there was only 2 African Americans left in the class.
Wow.
And so, having reached this place in SEAL training, I was just, after all the stuff I've been through in the past, it was just like nobody couldn't tell me anything. I was like super, super prideful, going out partying, chasing girls, telling girls at clubs, "Oh, I'm a Navy SEAL already," and man, I ended up getting kicked out of SEAL training. Man, I failed my swims in second phase, where the first phase, 2 mile time ocean swims were 85 minutes. Second phase dropped to 80 minutes. I wasn't working on what I needed to work on the weekend. Failed that. Got to pool week. I failed a test during pool week, which is dive week, where you do all these different dive tests. I failed the test 4 times. I went to the ARB board, and they said, "Hey, listen, you have too many issues in the water. We see you have what it takes because you made it through Hell Week.
Right.
But right now you're just not ready." And I got kicked out. And it was hard, man. It was hard, but that was the first time, I would say, in my adult life I can recall taking responsibility. I remember the cadre looked at me and they said, "Remi, what do you have to say?" And I remember just saying to them, "It's my fault. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Hopefully I get a chance to come back, and if I do, I will come back and I will crush this." So.
Pivotal moment in your life.
Absolutely. It was necessary. It was necessary. And then I got sent back to Camp Pendleton. This time I was in 1st Marine Division, 1st Mardiv, Battalion 1-4.
1-4, nice.
Camp Horno. And man, my Marines, man, they would not let me forget that I didn't make it through BUD/S. Every day, Doc quit. I was like, dude, I never quit. No, Doc, we know you quit. Because every dude that doesn't make it through BUD/S, I've probably met, out of the hundreds of dudes that have not made it through BUD/S, I've maybe met one dude who said, "Yeah, I quit." Right.
No one quit.
No one has ever quit.
It's like guys in prison. I didn't do it. And I try to tell guys, it's no shame, dude. So anyway, like the guys, when I was like, "No, I didn't quit," I got performance dropped. They're like, "Yeah, whatever. That's whatever. What do you corpsmen say who did quit BUD/S?" So it was a humbling experience, but it was a humbling that I needed, my Marines messed with me a lot, but at the same time, they pushed me, physically, they helped me to get to where I needed to get in order to get back to training. And again, I was blessed. I did a deployment with 1st Marine Division, came back, and I went right back to BUD/S. You went back to BUD/S.
And that was that was a blessing, because at the time you had to do 2 deployments, get your FMF pin, and then you can go to a special program, or you had to do 3 years, get your FMF program, and then you can go to BUD/S. And here I was, I just did 1 deployment, got my FMF pin, and I was back in buds.
Right.
So
Right.
and I breezed through.
Yeah.
When I went back, I breezed through.
Was going back, was that about becoming a SEAL, or was that about I got dropped and I need to go finish this thing?
Finish what you started, right?
I would say a combination of
Yeah, it was
both,
both.
man. It was, I came here, I put in so much work to get here the first time, and it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
I needed to finish the job,
Yeah.
and for me, another thing about it was I had failed so much at life. You brought up in the opening, people see you as a success and this and that, they don't see all the failure. Yeah, dude, I had failed so, we touched on a lot of my failures already, but I had failed so much in life. I had made a conscious decision that I cannot fail this again. Like, it was literally one of those decisions. I'm either gonna die or I'm gonna make it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't fail again.
Right.
So yeah, man, and I went back and I obliterated buds. I started all over day one, got kicked in the nuts over and over and over again, went through Hell Week, watched hundreds of guys quit again. But I was like, I'm getting this thing done, and I did, and that was good for me.
How long did you serve in the teams?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah,
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So your total time in service was what?
13.
13 years.
Yeah.
So why did you transition out of the military? And you've done so many things since then.
Yeah.
But what was that process like?
The transition process, it's hard because, it depends on the perspective I'm coming from. Part of it was good, but then there was another part of it that was depressing.
Sure.
Just really, really depressing, because I worked so hard to get to the teams.
Yeah.
I had a great time in the teams, had great deployments in the teams, and then, everything that I had worked up to do was now taken from me.
Right.
But it was by my choice.
What was the catalyst that caused you to make
kids.
that decision? Yeah.
My dad, died when I was young, and I looked at my two boys at the time. My oldest was 2, my youngest was 1. And I just couldn't be gone as much as I was in the teams, man. And I needed to be home.
Right.
But so it was good from that perspective, but from the perspective of giving up this life, the brotherhood is still there, but just giving up the time I had with the brothers and the teams, and going down range, and just the family atmosphere, and just that get after it, that perform at an excellence level all the time mentality, that was kind of gone, not for me, but for, just the people around me now at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think that's the decision we have to make, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel, particularly military guys, feel like I'm in this military environment and I don't have a choice. Right. I have to be away from home. I can't be the influence on my kids that I want to be. We all have a choice.
Yeah.
And sometimes the choice is you get out of the military and do something else, right?
Yeah.
Pause here. What was your faith journey?
Oh, yeah.
Where did you come to that place of hearing a voice and being upset at it to a man of faith?
That's a good question. So kind of going back, I was, a few things. There was a series of things that happened. The first thing that happened was I met a girl. It kind of always starts with
How many stories have started with that?
It started with a girl. I met a girl who, this was right before I went back to Buds the second time, who I fell head over heels in love with. And she liked to go to church. I didn't want to have nothing to do with church, but I didn't care. I would go anywhere she wanted me to go just to be with her. And so she started taking me to a church in San Diego. I only went about 2-3 times. It was called Cornerstone Church. And at the time they were in a tent. And I remember going there and just, again, hating everything about it. Just mocking the pastor, mocking everything, just everybody. And I we stopped going. I kind of got her to not attend really anymore. And then fast forward into our relationship, after I made it through Buds, I went to static line jump school. And while I was at static line jump school, on my second jump, the winds hit my parachute the wrong way. It's more to the story I explain it all in the book, but I came flying towards the ground at a really, really high rate of speed, and I ended up splitting my medial malleolus, which is the bone in your ankle, like right down the middle.
Holy cow.
I couldn't walk for 4 months. I did my next 2 jumps after that, though. The next day, I did my last 2 jumps, and then I went to the hospital because I was like, it's already broken. I just need to do 4 static line jumps to get the qualification. Why not get it over with? So, I couldn't walk for 4 months, and in that 4 months, this girl served me like a king. I mean, she, cleaned my house. She left a dog with me because I didn't have to go to the team, so she left a dog with me to keep me company. Yeah, she brought me food. She did all these things for me, and I treated her like garbage. And a lot of it was because of my anger. I know Chad can relate to this. He talks about this in his book and his story of how he spewed all of his anger on his family and his wife and kids, and that's what I did to her.
Right.
I didn't know how to control my anger.
Yep.
I was never physically abusive towards her, but I was emotionally and verbally abusive towards her. And then I cheated on her continuously. Yeah. And despite that, she would show up every day. Sometimes with tears in her eyes.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I truly believe that God was showing his love for me despite the way I treated him through that relationship. Yeah. As soon as I was able to walk, I broke up with her. And I'll never forget it. She fell on the floor in my apartment, and she was just like, "How could you do this to me? I've given up so much for you." And I was like, "I don't care. Get out of my apartment." Wow. Fast forward 3 months later, it was June, just like it was June of 2002, and I'm lying in my bed, and I hear this voice speak to me again. Yeah. And that voice said, "You need to take her back." Now, this is even more extreme and more crazy for me because at the time, I'm an SO, SEAL, I got money, good money coming. I'm in this nice apartment in Mission Valley. I got girls all over the place, right. You know what I mean? Player. And it's just like, why would I want to go back to her to be tied down with her? Right. And I literally got into a verbal argument. It's just weird. It's that conviction, right? Sure. Looking back, like from a spiritual standpoint, I can explain it as conviction from God. Yep. You are wrong. You need to take her back. Right. And even as an unbeliever at the time, a person who didn't believe, you still feel conviction when you do something wrong. Sure. You still feel it. Sure. I felt this heavy conviction that I needed to take her back and right my wrongs. And I couldn't explain it. And it bothered my conscience so bad.
You couldn't get away from it.
I couldn't get away from it. Yeah. And I had tickets to the Roots concert with Erykah Badu. I'll never forget this, sitting on my desk in my room. And I got out the bed and I looked at the tickets and I was like, dang, because I already had plans to take this other girl I was hanging out with to the concert for her birthday. So I cursed, I let out a string of curses and I called up my ex and I'm like, hey, how you doing? She said, I'm all right. She said, you want to go to a concert? She said, yeah. And we went to the concert. And then shortly after that, we got back together. I still treated her like garbage. And then I went to go to Kodiak, Alaska for cold weather survival training. And when I got out to Alaska, I had this supernatural experience where I was walking through the wilderness and it was as though God was speaking to me through nature. It's like hard to explain. And the way he was speaking to me was, he was showing me what I had become. It was as though someone was holding up a mirror, showing me how I treated my mom, because I treated my mom like garbage. Showing me how to treat her like my brother, because I treated my brother like garbage. Showing me how I treated my girlfriend, because I treated her like garbage. Showing me how I treated people, how I was belligerent, how I was vulgar, how I was prideful. It's like somebody because when you're in Alaska, because I had to do these navigation hikes, and so I'm all alone by myself, and there's no one around me. So it's just me and nature. And so as I'm walking alone, and I'm reflecting, and I'm seeing this person that I didn't even recognize, I just got angry. Yeah. I was just like, how could I do this to her? How could I do this to people? How can I be like this in this situation? Like, I really began to get angry and disgusted with myself. And I made a decision as I walked through Alaska. I was like, I'm gonna change. When I get back from Alaska, I'm gonna marry this girl. I'm gonna call my mom and I'm gonna just change my ways. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it. And I made that firm decision. Yeah. Now, I truly believe that it was God pushing me in that direction. So about 2 weeks after I had this epiphany, I get a phone, I'm still in Alaska, I go down and I pick up the phone and I call up my ex-girlfriend, my girlfriend at the time, and I say, hey, listen, don't say anything, hear me out. I know I've treated you bad, I know I've done some bad things. When I get back, I want to marry you. I was like, I want to be a better man to you. I'm just going to be different. Yeah. And I said that and she was dead silent on the phone. And I was just like, hey, did you hear me? And she was like, yeah. I said, what's wrong? You should be excited. Like, I'm a minute. She was like, I'm leaving you. I was like, what?
You can't leave me.
I was like, you leave me.
I love you. You can't leave me.
I was like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, wait, no, I'm seriously like, no, like, what's going on?
Right.
And I later found out that a week earlier, this is all God's orchestrating, she went to a party. She ran into a woman she had worked with years earlier at a law office. That woman was married to a Navy SEAL at the time. And she said, listen, I'm married to, she asked her, how's your relationship? I heard you're dating a SEAL. How's that relationship going?
Yeah.
My girlfriend was like, you know, it's just hard, you know, she didn't lay it all out.
Sure.
And the lady said, well, listen, if it's hard now, things are going to get worse later. You need to leave him.
Right.
And for the first time, she got the strength to leave me. Here I am having this revelation without anybody saying this to me. And so when she said that to me, I was just like, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Like literally, I was just like, what? And when I hung up the phone, I was like, what the just happened?
Right.
And I went up to the barracks and went up to the barracks room and I laid in my bed and I was just like, I was zoned out. And I just started to feel even more conviction. Like it was like, man, I'm getting payback for everything I've done, for all the lies I told, for all the things I did to people, my mom. That's why I felt, I was like, man, this is karma. This is like payback, man.
God set me up.
Yeah. And dude, I just started feeling worse and depressed. And it wasn't just behind her. It was also because of the way I had treated people. And now I'm really seeing that.
Yeah.
And things that I knew I couldn't go back and change. So all of these things were just coming at me while I was in Alaska. And I would go back out into the wilderness for more hikes, and more things would come to me. And it was just like somebody was just throwing a mountain of problems at me and waves and all of these things on me. And man, I hit the bottom. That was my bottom. That was my bottom. And my brother, he had been a Christian for a long period of time, for many years. And he would tell me, because I would make fun of him for being a Christian.
Sure.
I hated Christianity. Yeah. And he would tell me, he said, Remi, when you hit rock bottom, because you will, just remember to try to cry out to Jesus and watch what happens. And he would walk away because he knew I wasn't hearing nothing.
What great advice.
And so, so literally that's what I started doing. I was like, I don't know anything about this Jesus, but if you're real, I need your help. And gradually as I began to pray, I began to sense peace here and there. And then when I got back from Alaska, there's more to the story. I won't give it away. It's in the book. I ended up in church. My ex-girlfriend took me, and I can't tell you anything the pastor preached, but I could just tell you that I was broken. And here I was, this guy who had gone from Africa to Bronx, been beat up, fought guys, strong man, went through SEAL training twice, but that don't matter, man. Yeah. When you get broken and when you get humbled, you'll shed a tear. It don't matter how strong. And I was a crying dude in the church, and it's like God had gotten a hold of my heart. You know what I mean? Like in a real authentic way. Yeah. And when the pastor said, anyone want to give their life to Christ, come forward, I just got up and went to the front. And literally, I'm not going to tell you everything was perfect after that, because it wasn't. But I felt peace. Yeah. My life was different. And it was so crazy because my friends who knew me in the teams and who knew me from buds and who knew me how I used to be, they were like, yo, Remi, what is wrong with you, man? Like, who you going to church? Right. Like, who is this guy?
You finally got right. They thought you got wrong.
They thought it wasn't that. They were just like, they thought I was crazy. They thought I went crazy because they weren't used to me. Because I used to make up all of these sayings like, we going out tonight, dog. And I say things about girls, and they would come up to me and they'd be like, yo, Remi, what's this? They're talking like me. Yeah. And I'm like, I ain't with that anymore. They're like, man, what's wrong with you? What's going on? I'm like, yo, man. Jesus is real, man. Like, he got a hold of me. I ain't messing with that stuff. And that's how it happened.
Yeah,
man.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's how it happened, man.
Obviously, that's changed the course of your life. But like your relationship with your mom and your brother and your girlfriend. Yeah. I imagine just dramatic.
Yeah, everything changed. My mom, I confessed to a lot of things that I did to my mom that she never knew who did it. Right. I confessed to my mom. My mom forgave me. Me and my brother, our relationship got so much better after I apologized to him for the stuff I put him through. My ex-girlfriend, honestly, we never got back together. But I was able to make things right with her. And I talk about it in my book, how I was able to make things right with her later in life. Just everything changed, man. Everything changed.
So when we talk about dealing with trauma, whether it's life trauma or combat trauma or whatever trauma in our lives, we would say that faith is the one component that doesn't just put a Band-Aid on what you're going through, but it actually is a radical transformation. It allows you to move forward. With your experience, what would you say to someone who's in that, I've struggled with trauma, again, a combat guy, maybe not a combat guy, but this faith thing is just too much. I don't know about that. What would your advice to someone be on who's maybe in that place, the place where you were, where I don't want God, I don't want faith. I've got this thing figured out, but your world's falling apart around you. How do you get through that guy?
You know what? That's a great question.
I ask good questions.
That's a fantastic question.
Because I don't have answers.
But what I will say, and I hope this answer suffices, I don't know. And the reason why is because every person, every situation is different.
Right.
And so what I've learned to do, there's some people, because I get phone calls from guys all the time.
Sure.
Guys who I serve with, guys who I didn't serve with, and they're just like, Remi, I'm struggling with PTSD, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. What's your advice? How can you help me? And one of the first things that I have to do is pray. Like, Lord, give me the wisdom and understanding to help this person. Because for one person, it may be, let me pray with you.
Sure.
For another person, it may be, let's go to church. For another person, it may be, let's just get together and hang out and not say anything about the Lord. Let's just, I need you to see that I care about you and I'm just going to be here and be present. Or for another person, it may be having a full-on conversation and sharing my full-on testimony, or saying to them, like I've said to guys who hit me up before, dude, you know how I used to be, man. Like, you know how crazy I used to be. And you know how the peace that came into my heart when I came to Christ. And you know how he's carried me through so much. And you know it, like because a lot of times you can talk a person's head off, but when they have seen, and that's why the title of my book is Transformed. Because when you can see a transformation, that changes the whole.
That makes that authentic life so important, right? Because you always in your life up to that point or whatever went back to, I know Christians. I've been around church. They're hypocrites. That's not real. That can't help me. But your brother, it sounds like, I don't know him, had an authentic relationship with God.
He did.
Had an authentic life. And when you hit that bottom, you remember what he said, and he provided an example for you that you could follow.
And that's another thing I talk about that when I speak at churches. Sometimes I talk about, Psalm 71 verse 7 says, my life is an example of many because you have my strength of protection. Like, what the part of the catalyst for me reaching my bottom was my brother's example, because when I look back on how he was towards me, despite the way I treated him, and the love of God that he would pour out on me, that was like powerful for me. So I had that example to look to. And so, going back to your question, man, like, it all depends on the person, the situation, and that usually for me dictates what is. And that's one thing I try to encourage people as well, who are listening to this podcast, who know someone who's going through stuff. You know what I mean? Pray about what to say, you know what I mean? Or think about, think about what you're going to do, because it may not be what you say, it may just be what you do. You know?
Be someone worth following.
Exactly.
That's right. That's crazy, man. That's great. So, as if being a CEO wasn't enough, right? You did your thing, and you're a dad, and you got stuff going on. How in the world do you go from like doing all that to now you're in commercials and in a movie, and kind of this phase of your life kicks off and things start moving?
I've been telling people as of late that I lived an unexpected life, right? Things just unexpectedly happens to me. I wasn't trying to get into acting. I wasn't trying to get into the film business at all. I was in grad school finishing up my master's in organizational strategy, and I just got a phone call one day to be in a Transformers movie. And
how do you just get a phone call?
Well, the long story short,
because nobody's ever called me.
The call comes. Don't minimize yourself, man. There's a woman who her husband is a former SEAL, and he's worked with Michael Bay for a long period of time, since The Rock in '96.
Yeah, well.
And so when Bay wants SEALs for certain things, he reaches out to this guy. And so they were looking for an African American SEAL, and my phone rang.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
And it was supposed to be one day turned into 3 weeks. 3 weeks turned to me staying on the film until we wrapped in December, because I had started in May, and then. That when you do something of that scale, it just opens up other doors. Where everything that I've gotten, I've never auditioned for. I just pick up the phone or somebody, hey, I heard about you or this and that. So I was able to get in all the commercial work, sign an endorsement deal with Jockey. I just finished on Michael Bay's last film. We just finished in winter of 2018, 6 Underground. And so other doors just started opening, man. So I just started walking through them and just trying to be prepared
that's cool.
when the opportunity came.
That's how God's will works, right?
Exactly.
Everyone gets all worked up about what's going to happen out there 20 years from now. Just take the next step.
Yeah, exactly.
Go through the next door.
Take the next step and be prepared.
Yeah.
You know?
Did that open up the door for SEAL Team, the SEAL Team series?
Yeah. So, one of the who's now a producer on the show, he's the one that got me. He found out about me in Transformers, and he got me in my first 2 commercials. I did an AT&T commercial and a what was the other Army commercial, and so when he got on SEAL Team and they were looking for SEALs to help out, he was like, hey, I remember we worked together. Hey, come on down, dude. And so that's how I got in the SEAL Team, man. So it's just. I'm just available. I try to make myself available, be flexible, and even with the opportunities, I try to, get training. Right. And, when doors started opening, I wasn't like, well, this is going to just keep happening. I was just like, I need to go to school. So I went to the Elise Strasberg Theater and Film Institute to study method acting, just so that if more opportunities came, I had the tools that I needed. Right. And then, I got into writing, man. Like, I wrote my book myself. I didn't have a ghostwriter. I sat down and jammed it out. And that led me into screenplay writing. Me and Chad were talking about his film earlier today. And
I got to tell you, man. I read the one script you sent to which is not completed, but then I read I've been to your other script, and I'm not saying the names on purpose, but they're incredible. Like
thank you.
And then just hearing you talk like about scripts on the phone today, we were talking about the script for our film, and man, your mom. Making you do those papers in the weekend. Because you're an incredible writer. Yeah. I mean, really, I'm not just saying that. You're a gifted writer, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
For you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man. Writing's a tough thing.
It is. Yeah.
I think probably writing fiction is easier than writing your story, though, right? I mean, it's not real.
It depends. Like for me, it starts with, am I passionate about a project?
Right.
So if I'm passionate about it, it's fiction and nonfiction. Like it's going to be easier for me. The second thing is, as far as fiction, writing my story is easier because I know the story. Right. I have all the source material. I don't have to go research it. I can just pull from.
So easier technically, but do you feel vulnerable when you tell your story or write out your story?
No, because
you just shared it so much.
I've been sharing it so much that it's just like. It's just like I'm to the point where let me just put it all in the book, so now you can have it. So now I don't have to share it anymore. It's all in there. But writing fiction can be easy, but it can be hard too. Sure. It has its different challenges.
I didn't mean, I guess, easier, but just you're not putting yourself out there the same way you are. When you're telling all your stuff from your past or whatever, right?
I wanted to when I wrote the book. The big thing for me was being vulnerable.
Right.
Well, that was one of the big things. Another big thing is people have been telling me for years, you need to write a book. Your story needs to be told because it's inspirational. Yep. And for years I said, nope, absolutely not. And that's because of the stigma that, and Chad could relate to this, the stigma that's attached to, former soft guys who do write books. And one day I went on the Today Show to promote Transformers, and Kathy Lee Gifford pulled me aside afterwards, and she was like, Remi, you need to write a book. Yeah. I told her no. Yeah. And here's why. And she was like, that's stupid.
When Kathy Lee says do it, you don't ask questions.
You don't ask questions, right? And she said, you know what, Remi, your heart would be to write it the right way, not to beat your chest and say, look at me, I'm a Navy SEAL and I'm going on all these cool missions. Yeah. And so that's what really, then that conversation is what inspired me to write the book and tell the story. And so I forgot where I was going with this. It was the main point we brought up. But anyway.
Just why you wrote the book. And
yeah. That's why I wrote the book for it to be a tool, for it to be something that could be used to inspire people.
Right.
You know, from all backgrounds, all cultures,
right.
kids from where I came from,
right.
to look at all of these points in my life and say, dang, he went through X, Y, Z, he failed here. Well, if that's the case, then I too can achieve my goals, you know?
Yeah.
But the difference is, and you covered it in several areas of this conversation. The difference is you're not writing a book about you. You're writing a book for other people to be able to be a help to other people. I mean, this is the answer to your question that Jeremy had for you. You know, how do you help other people? I mean, I got asked this question recently by General Heritage when I was at Marine Corps boot camp. You know, how do you help other people? You start by sharing your story. You don't ask them what they're dealing with. You start by sharing your story and you expose yourself. You demonstrate vulnerability. You demonstrate transparency if you ever want to see that from someone else. Yeah. And you know, that happens in conversation on a one-on-one level. But if you want to reach a further audience, speaking, you demonstrate the transparency, you share it, and it prompts people to do the same. Your book, you know, if you write your book and you sugarcoat it, you're not going to have the impact that you're going to have.
Exactly.
You got to be honest, man. You got to share your struggles, because so many other people, you know, share the struggles that we have. We think that we're the only ones that go through hard times in life, and have things that we deal with. But the truth is, a lot of the people out there deal with the exact same things we deal with.
Exactly.
Someone just needs to be vulnerable.
Exactly. And I agree with you. And that's why, again, you know, I now remember what I was getting at. You know, I knew that I wanted to be vulnerable, and it wasn't going to be because I wanted to write the book to boost I knew why I was writing the book, and that's why it led to me writing in such a vulnerable way. Yeah. There's things in the book, because people have read the book and be like, dang, man, I can't believe you talked about that. Yeah. I can't believe you said that.
Right.
And I'm just like, well, there's a million people out there who went through that.
Right.
And until they see a guy of my stature and my background say, I went through that too. That's right. They're not going to, like you said, Chad, they're not going to believe that they can overcome it, you know?
That's exactly
right.
So,
you know, I tried to write the book for people, not for me. And I'm, you know, working with another writer on their project. And this person has an amazing story. This is going to be a book. But there's certain things that person doesn't want to share. You know, there's certain abuses that this person witnessed. Yeah. And so when they sent me a draft to read, I looked at it and I was just like, man, it's like everything's good. Nothing bad has happened in your life. I was just like, people, that's not going to help anybody. It's not inspiring.
There's a word we use in Christianity a lot. It's the word redemption.
Yeah.
And we typically use it in relationship to Christ and what he's done for us.
Yeah.
That word redemption, it has two meanings. It means to find value in something that's worthless.
Yes.
Or to set free or to break chains. That's the meaning of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think you find redemption in your story. You find value in something that was worthless.
Yes.
When you're transparent.
Exactly.
You share it. You find value personally, but you add value to the lives of so many other people. And then set them free.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what
redeeming your story.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you know, we're Christians, right? And so we want to point our life, you know, I know you, Remi, and obviously I know Jeremy, like our life, we want to point others towards the hope that we found in Christ. And I feel like when I speak, because I get the same thing sometimes, like, man, I can't believe you stood up for those people that said that. Like, people are like kind of shocked sometimes. I'm like, if I like dumb down and minimize the darkest places I've been, that totally lowers the level of where Christ's significant in my life.
Right.
Like
exactly.
I have to be able to clearly illustrate those peaks and valleys in my life, and those valleys in my life, and I know yours too, were pretty dark. And they're pretty deep. And if I'm not honest about that, it really, I mean, why would someone see the significance that I see in Christ if they don't know where I've been and where he's taking me?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, it's an important piece to leading others to hope, I believe.
Amen.
That's awesome. Amen. So, kind of bringing everything together, your book is coming out.
Yep.
Where do people get it? Title?
Yeah. Well, I think by the time this airs, the book
will be out. All right. So go get it.
Hopefully.
Just go get the book.
Just go get the book. Go get the book. May 14th. You know, it dropped May 14th.
Yeah.
Title is Transformed. Navy subtitle is A Navy SEAL's Unlikely Journey from the Throne of Africa to the Streets of the Bronx,
That's awesome.
Defying All Odds.
Yeah. Awesome.
Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, BAM, Indie Books, anywhere where books are sold, you can go get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, get a copy for yourself. Yeah. Get a copy for somebody else, because there are people that need to hear this story.
And one thing I will say, I spoke somewhere a couple weeks ago, and I did a signing. Me and my publisher worked out this thing where I could sign, not copies of the books, but I could sign these stickers. And I actually have some with me now. I could sign these stickers if you buy a book with me. So when you get your book, you slap the sticker in it and you have a signed book. And so at the end of the event, we had this line and people were coming up to me because I had shared my story. And one thing that parents kept saying to me is, I wish my son or daughter was here. But I'm buying this book because I want them to read so that they can get on the right track. And so I say that to say, even if you have a child like that's like crazy wild like I was, or wayward, or a child who won't listen to anybody else, won't listen to you, but something about me may resonate with them. Maybe it's the tattoos. Maybe it's the fact I was in Transformers. Maybe it's the fact that, I'm fit and I work out, or was a SEAL or whatever. If you feel like my story, just get the book for them.
Use it as a tool. How many times, Chad, we've had that conversation, probably hundreds of times at book tables. I'm getting this book. I like your story, but it's not for me. It's for a guy I know that served. Or my son, or whatever, or a spouse is trying to figure this thing out and understand.
No, absolutely.
I was just speaking in St. Louis this week, and this lady walked up to get me a sign. She had like 10 of them. She's walking up holding all those books. Like, I know 10 dudes that need to hear what you had to say.
That's awesome.
But your story is gonna impact so many people. It already has, but this book's gonna impact so many people. One question for you: when's the audiobook gonna release? Is it gonna be delayed?
Oh, no, the audiobook is dropping the same day. I did the audiobook read. We just finished pickups like 2 weeks ago. It's the same day the book drops, audiobook is dropping. So
because your book's a little thick, and I know some of my fellow Marines are gonna see that book and they're gonna be like,
a lot of story to tell.
Maybe the SEAL community will read that thing.
It's thick as it's just loaded with just depth. And I wanted to make sure that guys, a lot of military guys listen to us, and it is available in audiobook as well.
Yes, sir.
So beyond the book, Transformed, where can people follow you and just kind of keep up with you?
I'm on all social media platforms: Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, even Snapchat, even though I don't know how to use it. I just have the name, but it's all the same. Remi, Remi, and then Adeleke, Adeleke. If you go to my YouTube channel, my book's YouTube channel is called Transform Book YouTube channel. On that channel, I have a bunch of stories that didn't make it into the book. With every book, Chad can relate to this. You can't put every story in there, and so I don't share stories, but people who've grown up with me throughout my life, they share stories that didn't make it into the book about me.
Very cool, man.
So that's Transform Book YouTube channel.
Awesome. Anything we can do to support it when it comes out, we're going to do it.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for your friendship, and we're going to get you back on too.
Absolutely.
Thanks for everything. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Thank you, brother Chad.
Get a fist bump. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed, you need to subscribe. Hit that bell. That'll give you the notification of when new episodes drop. For those of you that are listening on the podcast or the show, so many different places you can pick this up. Please go check it out on our YouTube, and you can see, kind of the physique that I have next to our guest. So whatever. Maybe the SEALs do that for you. I don't know. But thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you next time, every Friday at 10, right back here.
Yes, sir.